Good evening, Cubbies. It's Mrs. Coppage, second grade teacher at CES. And I don't know if you know this, but February is Black History Month, and there are so many famous African Americans who have done some wonderful things, and you can read so many books about them. I know I have lots of books in my library that have to do with famous African Americans and people who have just made a mark on our country for Black History Month. But I know Mrs. Wade also has lots of books in her library. So if you want to check one out and find out more about Harriet Tubman or about Jackie Robinson or about Rosa Parks, just ask Miss Wade and she can probably give you lots of names of books so you can read some more. But today I'm going to read you a book called My Uncle Martin's Big Heart. My Uncle Martin's Big Heart by Angela Ferris Watkins. Have you heard of the man who spoke out, "I have a dream"? He was a great civil rights leader and an American hero. Do you remember his name? I'll give you a hint. His first name was Martin. Do you know who they're talking about? You might have heard about him. Yes, his name was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but to me, it was Uncle Martin. Actually, it was Uncle ML. Does he look familiar? Did you hear something about him last month? Maybe for a special holiday? ML was our family's nickname for him. The M stood for Martin, and the L stood for Luther. My brother Isaac, my cousins Alveda, Alfred, Derek, Darlene, and Vernon and I all called him Uncle ML. I liked the sound of his nickname. It was fun to say. Most people did not know that Martin Luther King Jr. had a family nickname. So usually when we went out in public, we called him Uncle Martin. People didn't see Uncle ML the way that I saw him. What the world remembers about Martin Luther King Jr. is that he was a man who changed things. They remembered that he worked hard to change laws in America so that all people had equal rights. They remembered that he marched and protested and that he made hundreds of speeches and wrote several books. What they saw was a man who inspired thousands of people to join him in helping to change America. But I saw something different. There was something very special about Uncle ML. I remember that my uncle loved to spend time with his family and send telegrams while he was away. He loved to laugh and make others laugh too. He loved to work. He loved God and all people. And something else, he spoke with a great big voice. Uncle ML worked very long and hard protesting, writing, and speaking, but he spent as much of his time as he could with his wife, my Aunt Coretta, and their four children, my cousins Yolanda, Martin III, Dexter, and Bernice. He loved them all very dearly. It was rather amazing that Uncle ML still found time to spend the rest with us. Uncle ML often came to our house for a visit. One time when he came over, I told him how my mother had scolded me. I imitated her voice and I pointed my finger as I told ML what she said. You broke my pocketbook. Although I wasn't trying to make him smile, Uncle ML's smile made me forget how scared I was that I broke my mother's purse. He wanted me to say it over and over again. He thought it was funny. No matter how hard Uncle ML worked or how tired he was, he would still come for a visit. Once he was so tired, he fell asleep in our living room couch with his shoes on. Can you imagine? My mother said we should never lie on the living room couch, and certainly not with shoes on. How could this be? Uncle ML had on his white shirt, his tie, his gold watch, and his black shoes. I guess my mother knew how tired Uncle ML was from all the good work he was doing. She didn't want to bother him. Uncle ML stayed in touch with us even while he was out of town. The day after I was born, Uncle ML sent a telegram to my mother, his sister Christine, congratulating her on my birth. Uncle ML sent it all the way from California to Atlanta, Georgia, where I was born. He was in California working, but still, he took the time to welcome me into the world. The telegram said, "Congratulations to my dear sister on the arrival of my new beautiful niece. May the struggle for human dignity which now engulfs our nation pave the way for a brighter tomorrow and a glorious future for Angela Christine. Love, ML." It sounded almost like a prayer. Uncle ML was a preacher, and a good one, too. He was also co pastor of our church, Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, for many years. His father, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Sr., my granddaddy, was the pastor. Uncle ML loved God and he loved to preach. He helped people to understand God's love. He wrote many sermons and he preached to the members of our church about the same thing that he spoke to American citizens about: how to love one another. Uncle ML spoke to thousands and thousands of people during his lifetime. Many people say that he was a great orator, a great speaker. I think it's because Uncle ML had such a great voice. It made people pay attention to what he said, and it made them feel good, the same way it made me feel. Most of the time, Uncle ML had a serious expression, especially when he was speaking, like when he delivered the "I Have a Dream" speech. He spoke about the dream of a better America where all people would love one another, no matter the color of their skin. Laughter was not usually what the world saw when they looked at Martin Luther King Jr. When he was around us, however, Uncle ML laughed a lot. His laughter showed in his face more than in his voice. When Uncle ML laughed, his face would light up so that others around him would laugh. Every time I think about it, it makes me want to laugh. Church was where I spent my most favorite time with Uncle ML. He and I frequently shared a very special moment. Right after church at Ebenezer, I would stay in the children's nursery during the church service. When church ended, an adult from the nursery would bring me upstairs into the sanctuary. Uncle ML would stand in front of the pulpit after his sermon and greet the members of the church who waited in line to speak to him. When Uncle ML saw me coming, he would step aside from the line, move into the aisle, and bend down. I would run down the aisle in my very best church dress and with my pigtails flying in the air to meet him. Uncle ML would pick me up and give me a kiss and a great big hug. In those special moments, I could feel Uncle ML saying, "I love you." That's what made Uncle ML so special. He had a very, very big heart, and it was full of love. Uncle ML loved America. He wanted it to be the best country, a country where people of all races and colors would be treated with respect. He worked hard to show people how to change things by using love instead of hate. Today, people all over the world know about Martin Luther King Jr. They read about him in books, they listen to his speeches, and they read the books that he wrote. Millions of people visit Atlanta to see where he was born, the church where he preached, and the place where he was buried. There are many streets, schools, and other buildings named in his honor through America. Every year, the country celebrates Martin Luther King Jr. Day on the third Monday of January. It's all because he was an ordinary man with an extraordinary love. The end. I hope you enjoyed our story tonight, and I hope you sleep well, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.